From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende, riding co-pilot, riding shotgun as he always does, Andre Johnson Jr. Before we get into it today, be sure to like, share, rate, review. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button and get the bell notification whenever we drop some new content. And today is one of those days where we are going to drop some content today. A very, very interesting Monday here. Not only is it Lunday Gras Monday here in the city of New Orleans, we're coming off of Super Bowl Sunday and a big Mardi Gras weekend. I enjoyed every last bit of it. Andre, how did you do that?
Man, it was a busy weekend for sure, between all the parades, the Super Bowl being an incredible football game.
Yep.
Like I said, plenty of party and plenty of food. I had a good weekend. I know you rode in Endymion.
I rode in Endymion. If I saw you out there, awesome. If I didn't, I apologize. It was the crowds were thick everywhere along that route. It was a mile longer this year than it normally would have been. I had some crazy set of circumstances, but I got a chance to ride, and I had an experience like no other.
How was your accuracy?
I thought it was pretty good for most of the day, especially if I was throwing a lot of Nerf balls into the wind. But so I thought it was pretty good. But the crowds, y'all were awesome. The day was awesome. It was one of those moments. I don't know if you've ever ridden in a parade, or at least a big one like that. To experience from that point of view. And I'm in New Orleans. We're both from New Orleans. Like, I've never experienced it from that point of view. I've ridden in parades before, but not that big and not in that crew. So it was awesome, and I had a fantastic time. Sunday was family day. I brought my kids and my wife out there to the Crew of Toth Parade. I didn't stay for Bacchus because Super Bowl Sunday was on, and that is going to kind of intertwine with our big picture here today. So what is our big picture here, Andre?
Our big picture here is now that the Super Bowl is over, the season is officially closed when it comes to the NFL 2023 year. We got to look towards next year. And next year for the Saints, they can finally officially bring in their next offensive coordinator, Klint Kubiak, the 49ers passing game specialist. We saw the 49ers lose the Super Bowl, but still a lot of good things from that passing game in specific. What did you see?
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, I saw I did my best to watch the game through two lenses. One was the actual fan enjoying a Super Bowl, watching the game, getting caught up in the excitement of the game, while also trying to visualize what's happening conceptually, offensively, to get an idea of how good this guy can be, what it could look like in New Orleans. And you try to match personnel to what's there, what could be coming here in New Orleans. But first off, I was able to talk to a couple people today. You saw the report that came out. The deal is done. I was able to confirm that at some point this week. They will likely have, I guess, the Saints announcement official.
Right.
So that's going to happen. So the Klint Kubiak thing is going to happen. So we talked about Klint Kubiak over the last couple pods. We brought him up quite a bit because of stylistically what he's able to do, where he comes from. And I told you guys to pay attention to the Super Bowl. And like I said, I was trying my best to watch it from a okay, how is this going to translate to, and also from an excitement standpoint, trying to decipher what San Fran was doing and trying to get a feel for what it might look like with the Saints. I went back and I watched it again without the emotion of the overtime and the extended overtime and the Pat Mahomes, all that kind of stuff. And frankly, there is a lot to like about what I saw, despite the fact that San Francisco only scored 19 points or 22 points in almost 5 quarters of play. Remember, Kubiak doesn't call the plays on game day. That's Kyle Shanahan. So I tried my best to get a sense of not play calling, more of play design and execution and what they're trying to do. Even the plays that didn't work, the early deep overthrow to Brandon Ayuk, it was there. The overthrow to Deebo Samuel, where Purdy was hit as he threw it, it was there. That was a well-designed play. The third down before the end of regulation, where the Chiefs caught the 49ers in that blitz, the slant route, it was there. It was a well-designed play for that situation based off what was coming. And then, of course, their final offensive play of the season, my God, it was so there. If they don't have any kind of that miscommunication up front, I mean, Purdy could have picked who he wanted to throw to because Jennings is popping wide open and Ayuk is wide open in the back of the end zone. They score right there. I think they have a strong chance to win the game despite it being in overtime, and the Chiefs would still get the ball back. You don't really have to be a film guru, in my opinion, to just look visually, watch how San Francisco plays, watch what they do, and think, that is different. That is different than what we're seeing here in New Orleans. And that's just the evolution of the game where they seem to be at the forefront of it. And the Saints just kind of got caught in what they felt was worked, what they felt they were most comfortable with. And it was hard to change because they had so much success. Personnel groupings, formations, different, not just motion, because people get all excited about motion with a purpose,
right.
Orbit motion, a shift in a motion. That weird, I say weird, it's creative. It's where Christian McCaffrey will be lined up in the backfield and he just does a lateral motion, like basically 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
You don't really see that much, and it's all set up by play design to dictate matchups and allow the quarterback to kind of easily define what's happening on the field. And speaking of McCaffrey, because he's the guy running those motions, he has, this.
Yeah.
He has been a whole new player since he got to San Francisco in this system. You can't tell me this system and that camaraderie didn't have something to do with that. All of a sudden, the guy is always healthy because there's that camaraderie, that brotherhood.
Exactly.
So can AK, Alvin Kamara, have that similar resurgence? I don't know, because I don't know where he's at in his career in terms of physically. Is he still at the same level of McCaffrey? I guess we would find out, but I don't know that yet. But regardless, I think that's something to really watch. Also this, regardless of what you think of Brock Purdy, I don't care about the label. The bottom line is he got his team to a Super Bowl, and they played him to the very last play of the game. They could have won the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. Coaching had to have something to do with that, and Kubiak was the passing game specialist. So even if he wasn't the guaranteed quarterback coach, he's the passing game specialist working with that guy. Clearly coaching had something to do with Purdy's development. Think about that for a second. Mr. Irrelevant almost beat Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. This close to beating Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Last pick of the draft, the greatest quarterback of his generation.
And they needed almost 5 quarters to win.
Right.
So, that matters. The coaching there has to matter because that can't happen in every organization. That has to happen in certain situations where the quarterback and the coaching is set up for that quarterback to have success. And it feels like this system, the quarterback is set up to have success. I'm very curious to see how the Saints utilize the fullback position because Kyle Juszczyk is vital to that offense, especially the way Kyle Shanahan runs it. Who is going to be that guy? Because as currently constructed, they don't really have that guy, at least in terms of the way they do it. Could you do kind of a Taysom Hill type hybrid situation there with him? Possibly.
Taysom could do pretty much anything.
Yeah, I mean, can he be a traditional fullback and an H-back and a guy that could, possibly all these new toys at his disposal. Now, I will say this. We're throwing rose petals at it, and it's a name. It's from the best system in football. It's a lot of success. DA got his guy. The organization needed it. I do have a concern.
Okay.
And if you watch, the concern is this. If you watch that game, and you watch the 49ers up front, I watched those 49ers linemen, and I'm not sure the Saints, as currently constructed, are capable of that. What they do on a down-in, down-out basis. And if there are any deficiencies there, from the Saints I'm talking about, from body type to execution to lateral movement skills to agility, I mean, look how much they move and how in unison they seem to be. That, my friend, could be a problem. And your offense, this offense, regardless of the Shanahan tree, goes nowhere if that is not in sync and you've got the guys you need. So there could be a lot of changes up front or a lot of figuring things out up front for this entire offense to go.
Right. And when I look at that Kubiak offense and what he's done in San Francisco, I think about the Saints offense. When you and it's difficult to compare because there's different weapons, different players, but the number one thing outside of creativity, he's going to bring creativity, but a huge thing that I think he can bring to New Orleans is that big playability that this team has lacked. You look at New Orleans. They were 31st this year when it comes to yards per carry. 49ers were so good running the ball that Christian McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year. The Saints had 4 rushes this season, only 4 of over 20 yards. None of those 4 rushes, Sean, came from a running back. 3 from Taysom Hill.
Say that again.
4 rushes of over 20 yards. None of those 4 rushes came from a running back.
Yeah.
3 from Taysom Hill, 1 from Lynn Bowden.
Lynn Bowden. How about that?
0 rushes of over 40 yards this year. One of 9 teams to not have a single rush of over 40 yards. This big playability for the Saints simply was not there this year. And that's in the running game. You look in the passing game. The Saints were 19th in yards per attempt. Pretty much middle of the road, slightly below average. You know who was first in yards per attempt?
I got a feeling of where you're going with this. Why don't you let us know?
Brock Purdy.
Okay, that's what I figured.
One Brock Purdy. 9.6 yards per attempt. Almost a first down, 10 yards every time he throws the ball per attempt. Distance that he's throwing. Derek Carr, 7.1. So again, we talk about obviously Kubiak isn't calling the plays, but the execution, the scheme, the way things are being done, that is part of the reason why Purdy is first in yards per attempt. That is part of the reason that Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, is number 1 in QBR, quarterback rating, this past season. So when you talk about what can Kubiak bring to New Orleans, a big playability that this team has lacked, at least this past season.
And I'm very curious to see when he finally gets in and settles in. I'm sure he studied the roster up and down, the personnel up and down, has a good read on what's coming out in college, how he kind of puts his stamp on it and kind of figures out who his guys are and who aren't his guys that may or may not fit. Because there could be some guys that we're assuming are going to be big play guys and big name guys in this offense that may or may not even have a spot based off their respective skill set. For instance, is there a true, because this is all 49ers do, is there a true catch and run guy on this team? I'm not talking about a deep ball guy. I'm not talking about a possession guy. And I like Olave, got a little bit better yards after catch. But is there a true catch at 8-yard slant and go guy?
Rashid Shaheed's the only
That's
one
the
that
only
really
one.
comes to mind.
That's the only one. And even that, I mean, he's more of a 9 route, get behind the defense type guy.
Right.
So that's something to really watch. And like I said before, is there an offensive lineman that we assume will be back and assume will be starting, but with the way this scheme works and the way they do things, that maybe that gets flipped on its head and maybe perhaps there's a different lineman starting in a spot that we weren't even thinking of. And maybe that impacts the way they draft guys. Maybe that impacts the way they go out and sign guys. Maybe there's a guy on San Francisco's roster right now that may become available that all of a sudden Kubiak wants because he's obviously coached that guy before. So there's so many different layers, but the bottom line is this offense is not what Saints fans are accustomed to seeing in black and gold, so accustomed to seeing it a certain way. It is going to look totally different in 2024. And honestly, it had to happen. It was time. It had to happen.
It's what fans have been wanting.
So you wanted it, you got it. And like I said a couple weeks ago, first real piece of positive momentum for the Saints this offseason to land the number 1 guy on that list from the most coveted coaching tree, the most coveted coaching offensive system in the NFL, from a team that's kind of stuck in a little bit of limbo now, 3 straight years of middle of the pack, no playoff appearances. To me, that's at least the first sign of optimism. So we can't really go any further beyond that because, frankly, until he gets here and until we kind of see it on the field, we're not exactly sure who's going to end up being the guy and who's not going to be the guy and how it ultimately ends up being. But I will say this, I'm pretty confident in this. That offensive line is going to be remade in Kubiak's image in terms of what he wants, because that's where it all has to start for this offense.
For sure. And, we talked a little bit about the Super Bowl earlier. If there's one big takeaway that you can take away from the game as a whole, what would that be?
Well, I think the easy take would be like the Chiefs are in the midst of a dynasty. Patrick Mahomes is in the midst of a GOAT conversation. If he's not number 1 yet, if he's able to last as long as Brady did, he's number 2 right now. You just can't have that kind of resume. Just ignore it. At 3 Super Bowls at 28 years old, he'll be 29 next year. I'm thinking at the absolute worst, if Father Time all of a sudden just says, I'm done with you, he's still at least got 5 more years playing this style of ball.
Right.
We'll see what happens with Kelsey. I can only imagine he's probably got 1, maybe 2 years left. And Andy Reid, how long is he going to be there? But look, you're in the midst of it. But I kind of thought 49ers kind of blew it. I thought they blew it. I mean, they had their chances. I mean, the blocked extra point, the special teams mistake. And I go back to this. We talked about it earlier. After Brock Purdy leads them down and they kick the field goal to go up 19-16, they panned over to the 49ers sideline. There was not a single face of excitement. It was nerves. It was here we go again. And I'm telling you, man, this guy does it. His presence, Mahomes, it's almost like his presence intimidates these guys. These big name. I mean, 49ers is one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. And, Lamar Jackson was the league MVP. He kind of got shook. Josh Allen, he got shook. 49ers is the second time playing them in the Super Bowl. They kind of got shook a little bit. And look, the only guy that hasn't gotten shook that's still playing right now, the only one that's not intimidated, they'll never admit they're intimidated, but they do get intimidated. That was the look of intimidation after they got the ball back when there were 2 minutes left. The only thing was, it was a surprise it got into overtime. The only guy that doesn't apply to is Joe Burrow. He's the only one that doesn't get intimidated when it comes to Pat Mahomes.
He beat him a couple years ago, AFC Championship game, and I agree with you. Like the 49ers had so many chances to close the door on Kansas City, especially in that first half. The Chiefs did not play well. I feel like the 49ers kind of forced the Purdy narrative. Everything was going around. Is Purdy a game manager? Is he this? Is he that? Giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey after that first fumble he had early in the game, but after that, Christian McCaffrey was working. And it seems like they kind of went away from Christian.
Third quarter.
And especially in that third quarter. And there was a stretch where he really didn't get many touches, and it was all on Purdy, and Purdy couldn't put those chances away. And then when that muff punt happened and the Chiefs scored one play later, you kind of knew it was over. When the Niners kicked the field goal to go up by 3, and Mahomes had 2.5 minutes left, you knew it was over. In overtime, when the Chiefs could only get a field goal and not a touchdown, you kind of knew Mahomes is going to put this game away. And you mentioned, the GOAT conversation. Obviously, he has played well enough to force his way into that. I mean, at this point, when you look at his resume over, the 6 years that he's been starting, he's up there in that Brady range, that Montana range. And you can have your GOAT debates. What I would just say is appreciate greatness, people. This is not normal. And for me personally, I just enjoy seeing a quarterback that is doing things that I have never seen before. Just the same as I enjoyed seeing Tom Brady do things that I have never seen before. Now, I think Mahomes, he's got a little bit of work to do before he passes Brady, number one, because
it's just longevity.
That's
what it's all about.
You look at the numbers, the years that he played, and the fact that Brady actually did beat Mahomes head-to-head in the Super Bowl. That's going to be a hard one to overcome in the GOAT conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Brady's over 40 at that age, and, he's able to beat him. And plus, he beat him, obviously, in an AFC Championship game back in 2018 as well, that 2018 season.
And he outperformed them to beat him.
He did.
It wasn't even – in the sports office, we have a lot of basketball discussions. One of them is LeBron versus Jordan. I'm a LeBron guy. Imagine if Wizards Jordan beat Miami Heat LeBron. I'd have to shut up. I couldn't say anything after that. So it's kind of that same analogy to me. Brady beating Mahomes in his, age 78 compared to 23-year-old Mahomes.
Yeah.
Mahomes is going to have to go above and beyond if he wants to pass Brady in that conversation. But right now, I'm not worried about that. I'm appreciating greatness. I love that we got a good Super Bowl game. I love that Mahomes and the Chiefs has this dynasty going. And for me, I hope they keep it going as long as possible.
Well, I see, and I've now reached the point of, all right, now I'm already thinking, who can realistically knock them off? That's where I'm at with the conversation. And that's where I turn to Joe Burrow, because like I said before, he's the only one that doesn't seem shook when he's on the field. Like, these guys get this oh no moment, these oh no look on their faces whenever the moment seems to happen. And, when they didn't score that touchdown in overtime, the 49ers, you just knew it was over. You knew it was done. The Chiefs are going to come down. They're going to do what they had to do to win the game, and that's exactly what happened. And the looks on their faces said it all. I'll say this: I thought Purdy had his moments of good play. I thought he had his moments of misses, kind of in the ebb and flow of the game. You're this close, and if you're Kyle Shanahan, you're just like, my God, not again. And I kind of thought he got a little bit outcoached towards the end of that game as well. So it was an entertaining Super Bowl, though. And I thought that was ultimately the two best teams playing for the Super Bowl.
Definitely. I agree.
All right. I guess that'll do it for us here today on the Fox 8 Overtime podcast. Enjoy your Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras Day in the city of New Orleans. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.